Thank you for joining us for today's Level Up webinar. My name is Donna Taylor and I work for the Ohio Trucking Association. Our webinar today will be presented by Brian Reynolds from Renier Construction and Dave Kaldy from Archall Architects. During the session, we'll be moderating the chat and Q&A feature. If you have any questions for our presenters, please type your questions there and we will try our best to get them all answered. These features can be found at the bottom of your viewing screen. It is now my pleasure to welcome our speakers. As President and Chief Executive Officer, Brian brings over 20 years construction and architectural experience to Renier clients. Brian is responsible for executive project management, overseeing the development of design and construction documents, as well as maintaining and expanding services offered by Renier throughout the design, build, construction process. Brian, a graduate of the Ohio State University with both a Bachelor of Science and a master's degree in architecture, joined Renier's team in 2019. Prior to that, Brian worked for Architectural Alliance on numerous projects for such clients as Germain Jaguar Land Rover of Easton, Germain Lexus of Easton Service Center, Lexus of Dayton, Buckeye Toyota, Hugh White Honda, Georgesville Nissan, Mountaineer Automotive, Ford Lincoln, Germain Toyota of Columbus, Germain Toyota of Sarasota, Mark Porter Chevrolet Buick GMC, Bayer Chevrolet of Grove City, and Auto Assets. Brian resides in Upper Arlington with his wife and two teenage children. And as president of Archall Architects, Dave plays a key role in shaping the design intent of our projects, ensuring they align with the project's overarching goals and objectives, while focusing on building strong relationships and fostering a collaborative and supportive environment for all stakeholders. He also leads strategic company growth initiatives while always pushing for a high level of quality work and always delivering exceptional service. Dave holds degrees in architecture from both the Ohio State University and the University of Cincinnati. And over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Donna, and thank you to the Ohio Trucking Association for hosting this webinar. And thank you to all the attendees for sharing this time with us here this morning. So we're going to talk about streamlining trucking facility design and construction, and specifically through building teams and the design, build, partnering project delivery method. So just a short agenda here today. We'll do, Donna, you already kind of did the introductions, and we can elaborate a little bit more on that. Talk about why design build, what is design build in the process, look at a video of some customer testimonials, and then answer any questions that you have.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Dave. Just a quick little additional information about myself, and then Brian will talk a little bit about himself as well. But we have been, we strategically placed this this type of presentation together because we think that we have a unique workflow as an architect and a contractor that we've done a number of times on other projects. So I'm speaking to the architecture side. Obviously, Brian's speaking more to the contractor side of things. We'll get into more of those details as we go along. But yeah, we're based out of Columbus, Ohio, and we're excited to be here today. Thank you for your time.
So we're also here in Columbus, Ohio. Renier was founded in 1980. So we're going to be celebrating our 45th anniversary here in April coming up. And I'm from Ohio, born and raised, grew up in a small town in northeastern Ohio, came to Ohio State, and like a lot of people then just kind of grew roots here in Columbus, Ohio. So let's keep it rolling here, Dave.
Yeah, so like we talked about before a little bit, Archall Architects and Renier Construction, we've done a lot of projects together. Brian mentioned the age of Renier being a little over 40 years. We're similar in age. If you look at our time period here, we started working together very early. So we've been working together for over 30 years. And we have done a lot of projects together, meaning that we've worked through the workflow, the best ways to do things, just kind of streamlining the process in general. And here's a couple images of projects that we've done. So there's a Lexus store in northern Kentucky that we just finished off that's very impressive. Honda Marysville, which is right across the street from the Honda manufacturing plant. We've done a lot of work with Dayton Freight over the years, cross-dock, terminal buildings, maintenance facilities, office components, Hogan Trucking, just to name a few of ours that we've worked on. We are based out of Columbus, Ohio. So this is just a map showing the states that we have done work in. We can do work outside of the blue areas, aside for this thing over here on the far left. It's a little joke there, but yeah, no, we are focused primarily in the Midwest, but we do go outside of that area for clients in particular. We don't actively try to get work outside of that, but Dayton Freight's a very good example of a client that took us to many different locations across the country. So on this is just talking a little bit about our process. One of the things that we like to do, and we're going to get into it, there's another diagram we'll show here in just a minute. But the thing that we're going to talk about today is how, when you do a design build type of workflow, like the services that we provide, what you end up getting is a higher quality product and value out of that. That's that first icon up in the top left there. So what that does is you have a team from the beginning. You have the architect, you have the contractor. Sometimes you get specific trade partners involved as well, whether they be civil engineering, MEP engineers. Sometimes we go and get the consultants or the subcontractors that are going to be actually performing the work so that we can order things early. If you guys have done any work in the past couple of years, we know supply chain issues have been an issue for everybody. And so we have strategic alliances with different partners that we would get involved early in the process. And what that does is that helps reduce the amount of risk that you're going to have throughout the process. So there's less surprises ultimately. And well, again, we'll get to the kind of the full workflow here in just a minute, but the goal of what we're trying to do is we're trying to streamline the design and the build process and minimize the amount of surprises that would happen along the way.
Yeah, so these are kind of the four key benefits of design build. You have the improved quality and value, reduced risk, faster project delivery, and controlled costs. So design build expedites the overall design and construction schedules. And you do that through the team building that Dave was describing. And the whole goal here is to get the project done as quickly as possible with the fewest amount of surprises. And obviously, the schedules is critical. The sooner that the project is completed, the sooner you open your doors for business, but then controlling those costs as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we develop budgets and how we control costs through this process and really maximize the value. When you compare design build to the more traditional design bid build process, you're typically saving about 33% time and about 6% in cost. The time saving really comes throughout the entire project. It's in the pre-construction and construction, and the cost saving, mainly that 6% in cost saving comes from the elimination of change orders. And that's the where when you find all those issues in design and you can address them before you begin, we can guarantee that you won't have any change orders on the project, and therefore a lot of cost savings is realized. So this graphic compares the design build timeline to the traditional design bid build timeline. The key thing to look at here is when the final cost of the project is established. So when we before we begin construction, we'll enter into a fixed fee lump sum contract, and that is the cost of the project. There are no change orders unless they're requested by you, which is a pretty big guarantee that we can provide because of our involvement and because of the team building in pre-construction. Typically, in the design bid build process, you might work directly with an architect without a contractor to develop drawings that they're bid, and then it's not unusual for there to be a surprise at the cost, some value engineering, some redraw, some rebid, and you're extending that process. And then through construction, with no guarantee of no change orders, your final cost isn't established until you're done.
Yeah, and the thing that I think, from the design side of things of the building, this is a great workflow for really for everyone. And from the owner's perspective, with this workflow, you understand what the project scope is going to be really the entire time. So there's not a big surprise at the end. There's no surprise that it's over budget, for example. And now we have to pare back, like Brian talked about, with value engineering to figure out a way to get it, we like to say, between the guardrails, so to speak. So the expectations of the expectations of what the building will be and the design and the experience of the space is really doesn't change from the beginning until the very end. One of the things, and I'm going to just jump ahead just briefly here, and we'll hit on that again in a minute during the bidding process, but I think one of the things that people may not understand about this process is what open book bidding looks like. So there still is competitive bids out to all the subcontractors, and Brian will talk a little bit more about that as we go. You basically just take all the things you're going to do along the way and put them in the right order. And what it does is it saves time on the project, and your expectations are just kind of in line really the entire way. So we love this workflow, absolutely love it. Just kind of see the joy from everybody. Everyone, all of our clients that we work with really enjoy this project delivery method. So just talking about some of our other relationships with other people that we've done work with. We hit on it a little bit earlier on in this presentation, but we have done a lot of work in the transportation and automotive venues. So these types of clients that we typically work with, a lot of them are family businesses. A lot of them, the automotive stuff's really interesting because it has truly family-owned businesses that are generational, which is also true for trucking. And, we also have done other fairly significant projects, like we have the Ray Hall race building that we did in Indianapolis here. Again, still related to something that has a box with 4 wheels on it, so to speak. But yeah, we've had a lot of success with our clients over the years. Once people work with us, they tend to trust us and come to us immediately for the next project that they may be doing. And I think part of what the reason why they do that is because we take our job seriously, we do a good job, but it's also we're people, and we want people to have a good experience along the way. And ideally we're there's a friendship level to everything that we're doing as well. So that's a little bit on that. Brian, did you want to add anything to that?
I think the key thing is we are in the partnership business. We're not interested in transactional kind of interactions. We're interested in building a partnership, and I've always seen it as Dave, as I always want to treat everyone as exactly as I would want to be treated, right? With full transparency, with full integrity, and kind of knowing all the information. So we're not hiding, holding the cards close to our chest. We're pretty vulnerable, and we are open book, and that's really the reason we've been able to build these partnerships that are now in the third and fourth generation. So they've evolved from what begins as teaming up on maybe a facility into authentic partnerships and friendships, to be honest with you. So we'll talk a little bit about now how we do this. What is our process? So we'll start off. The first thing is always listening, listening to hear what your needs are. We bring a lot of experience to the table, but no two businesses operate in exactly the same manner. So we want to hear about what your needs are and how. Where's your pain points in a facility? What does great look like for the facility? And then through that process, we can quickly develop some preliminary drawings. And depending on the scope of the project, that might look like a high-level site plan, a floor plan, and maybe some elevations. And then we have a database of competitively bid projects that we'll use to create what we call a level 1 budget. So it's a preliminary budget based on current market price. And then we'll review that with you and make sure that the expectations are aligned. So you've got everything you want in the design, everything that you need at a high level, and then you have an understanding of what the project cost is at a high level. And sometimes that takes, sometimes you get it on the first pass, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 passes, but because we're working at that high level, we can cycle through these things pretty quickly. Then once expectations are aligned, we would enter into a pre-construction agreement, and we also put together a project development schedule. We're very schedule driven. So the pre-construction agreement would be for the cost to create the construction drawings. And that's a pass-through cost from Renier. There's no markup on that cost, and the project development schedule sets forth timelines. I think, Dave, you'll talk a little bit more about some of those timelines in the next slide here, but you can't get to the finish line quickly without establishing where the finish line is at. So we're very deliberate in that schedule and meeting those deadlines to make sure that we're delivering the project on time. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides here, but it starts from the very beginning.
And I think it's interesting too, Brian, that when the subcontractors are being asked to bid on a project, they're being asked to bid the schedule as well, and it has to fit in within the bigger scheme of everything.
Yeah.
So once we get the pre-construction agreement signed, and we're really at that point, Archall Architects is really getting very, very involved at this point, crafting the design even more than what we did in the initial pass. We believe that quality is a very, very important thing for our documents. That also is important for Renier when they're bidding things out, to make sure that all of the scope is covered in that process. So what we typically do is we do a 30, 60, 90, those are percent completions throughout the process. And so once we get to 30%, we have a list of things that need to be completed by that period of time. And we do a deep dive internally. We'll do a deep dive on the QA/QC, reviewing the documents, making sure everything is accounted for. We've done this hundreds of times, so we know what the things need to be at those different milestones to make sure that we're progressing in the correct way. So we have a complete, thorough set at the end. And then really at that 30%, 60%, we're still talking design stuff at that point to a degree. We're working on finish selections or whatever the fine tuning to the design needs to be, whether it be the exterior design or the interior plan layout. But by the time we get to 90, we're really rolling, and that's where a lot of our detail work starts to come into place. After we complete those 30, 60, 90 reviews, we publish a set again internally, both to Archall, all of our engineering consultants, and then also to Renier, and everyone has an opportunity to do a deep dive review on the full set as well. There's just a lot of communication between the team to make sure that the quality documents are there. And then depending on the relationship that we have with the owner, there are obviously there are owner meetings along the way as we're developing all of these drawings. Some owners like to be on every single one of our weekly meetings. Some just want a executive summary of what happened in the meeting type of a thing, and we cater that to our clients' needs. But what we like to do in any case is at some point along the way, we'll do a page turn with the owner and show them and kind of walk through the project. We talk a lot. There's a lot of things that go into buildings and the decisions and the details. And, we start getting into maintenance shops, for example, and we start asking questions like, where's the air compressor going to be, and the lines, what types of heating and ventilation, all those things. So there's just a lot to go over on any building. And what we want to do is we want to provide the tightest set of drawings that we possibly can, so that when it goes out to bid, all of that scope is covered and there aren't as surprises along the way as we start building the building. Obviously, once you get the drawings done, you start going into the permitting process, submitting for permit. We have ways that we've done in the past to expedite that if we need to. Depending on the jurisdictions, there's zoning requirements as well, and that's a completely different thing where some can be extremely involved and some can be a little easier to work with. So that's a bit on the process, and I'd say just in general, what we do is a high level. If you remember anything I just said, is we will be doing weekly meetings to progress this project to a schedule to make sure that we meet the bid permit date so that construction can start on time, from that initial schedule that Renier puts together.
And David, I'll add to that. For the weekly meetings, the estimator here at Renier that created that level 1 budget that we discussed, they're involved in these weekly meetings as well. And really, it's a critical piece of the team because they're able to raise their hand at the table and say, hey, this thing we're talking about, it could be potentially adding cost to the project, so we can identify that. Typically, we'll do 1 or 2 budget updates at those milestones. So typically the 30 and 60 are the appropriate points to do an update to the budget, to review and make sure that expectations haven't changed, that the budget is still aligned, and that it's going to meet your expectations. Again, we're trying to avoid surprises through this whole process. And Dave, you touched on this a little bit earlier. So this is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions with design build versus the design bid build process, is that design build isn't competitively bid. How do you know you're getting the best value? How do you know you're getting a good price? We do competitively bid every trade in the project, and that is, as you mentioned, bid not only to the scope of the drawings, but to the construction schedule that we put together. It's a very detailed schedule. The trades are bid local to where the project is being constructed. So if you're in Northwestern Ohio, we'll be using Northwestern Ohio trade partners. If you're in Indiana, we'll be using trade partners from Indiana local to the project. If you have relationships with trade partners that you like, if you say, hey, this guy has done all of our overhead doors for years and they maintain them, they will be invited to be part of that bid process. And that usually takes about a month when we're competitively bidding all these scopes. And then we've got to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and things are thoroughly vetted. Once we get to that point, we're open book, and we'll share that information with you with what we call the bid tally. And it's usually we try to have 3 to 5 numbers for every major trade, just to make sure that you are getting the most competitive current market pricing. And we're fully transparent with those numbers. We'll share the direct cost with you. Our fees are below the line when you enter a construction contract. And I'll talk back to the design process a little bit as well. And through all those reviews and through this bidding process and our scopes of work, this is how we're able to offer the guarantee that there will be no change orders unless you request something during design. The other thing that we do when we bid the project is we have our bidders fill out a bid breakdown form. And where that's important is that, so certain elements, and I'll use an interior door as an example. So when we know that an interior door costs $350 or $500, whatever it is, and you say, hey, I'd like to add a door to this room, that door doesn't suddenly cost $1,500 because they're taking advantage of you. We can go back to their bid breakdown forms, identify the unit cost of that material, whatever it is, to make sure that if there's something that you request during construction, that you're also getting a fair price at that time. And then team building doesn't stop in pre-construction. When those trade partners are brought in as part of the team, communication is key. And we've been implementing a lot of lean construction practices, and we've seen some amazing results here recently with projects actually finishing ahead of schedule, which is super cool because that results in cost savings to you. So if we say it's a 10-month project and we finish in 9 months, you're not paying for that 10th month of supervision and general conditions. So there is some value there as well. So the lean construction practices are pull planning. So we'll pull together all the trade partners and we'll work with them to have them tell us the durations of their work and sequencing. And we'll make sure that that stuff all aligns. So the key is making sure you don't have too many trades overlapping, causing inefficiency, or that you have gaps and pauses between these trades and their scopes of work. And we've seen amazing results. This is kind of worked more effectively than some of the older tools that used to work, like offering overtime and things like that. So we're able to get this stuff done in a timely manner, at least within the time we've committed to, and oftentimes sooner. And part of that process, our superintendents we'll have full-time on-site supervision for a lot of our projects. They'll put together a weekly work plan. So what you see in the background of this photo is the pull plan, and those Post-it notes are the work that will be happening for each Post-it note represents a week. But then you could walk into our office trailer or wherever we're stationed, look at the weekly work plan and see what's happening that week. So you'll immediately know, here's the things that are happening. And then our superintendent holds daily huddles with the trade partners to make sure that everything is right on schedule. During construction, we do have typically they're bi-weekly owner, architect, contractor meetings, and those are held on the job site, and we're just giving you updates about here's what's happening, here's what's happened the last 2 weeks, here's what's happening in the next 2 weeks, identifying and solving any issues that may have come up along the way.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to this is, clearly this is not what Archall, the architect, would be doing on this conversation, but what we've seen is a lot of communication from all of the trade partners, the subcontractors, to coordinate these who needs to be where type of thing. So when you're looking at that picture in the background, there's a bunch of blank Post-it notes on that particular example, but there's a schedule going across the top of that, and it's a discussion of, when does the foundation need to be in, and coordinating with the plumber to make sure that his pipe's in the right spot or whatever needs to be coordinated. And they're walking through major milestones, even on the construction process, to make sure that everyone's coordinated and committing to the dates, because they understand if they don't get their work done, it's going to have a ripple effect to the other subcontractors as well. So it's really, really cool. I love watching this process. It's very streamlined. And then after it's all said and done, we have the building, the facility, the space, the vision from the owner kind of comes to life. There's the celebration typically. This is a ribbon cutting. This one was a newer project that we did recently. It's a Volkswagen store that's here closer in Columbus, but it's just having that relationship with the clients all the way to the end. And I think what is really great about along the way is that the feel and the vibe during construction is very positive, just in general with the process we're talking about. So the owners, the clients, everybody that's on the team, we're in this together. We're in this together to solve issues. There are issues that come up in construction, and we fix those. So what's really great, I think, in this particular image that you see, yes, it's a ribbon cutting. There's a lot of people in there that kind of dressed up for the day, but that's the feeling that you see on their faces is the same feeling that you see when they come to the construction meetings throughout the process. They're just people. What we want people to have a good experience along the way. Construction is hard, it's complicated. We know how to do it, and what we want is we want our clients to have a good experience along the way.
Yeah, that's a good segue, David. We have a short video we'd like to share with you of some of our. This is a recent video of some of our partners and some things that they've had to say about their partnership here with Renier, and really this is all based on their experience with this design build process.
The most important thing, I think, is just the appearance, the freshness, the cleanliness, the attention to detail for every little thing that happens with a consumer. We needed somebody who knew what the heck they were doing at that next, probably 3 or 4 levels up, right?
You know what, when it comes to doing business with people who treat you like family, it feels the best. Why? Because you know they care, right? If it was only about money, if it was only about the dollars and cents, then you wouldn't get that extra part that people actually care, that they're going to give their heart, they're going to do the right thing to make the right job.
They do what they say they're going to do, when they say they're going to do it, and always within a budget that they provide for us. With Renier, it's never a matter of dollars or cents, it's just we know they're going to do the right thing. So it makes it very easy to sit down and plan a project like this because they've got a lot of experience.
They just have so much knowledge that they bring to the table, already having experience a lot of times with whatever franchise you're trying to do a new facility for. They come to the table with a lot of information and already experience from having done other ones to make the process a lot simpler, a lot easier, a lot quicker.
I think probably the number one thing that I love with Renier is, I've built 4 dealerships with them now. And what they're there to stand behind the product, to be there for me 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. When it comes to relationships, I think it's everything, right? What it be if you're buying your first car to building your first dealership. It's very important.
You have a lot to deal with, a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges, a lot of adversities. And the last thing that you need is to start having questions about trust. I always trusted them. I trust them today. And that's one thing I know about Renier. You see it. There's a certain culture there. And it's one of quality, integrity. That means a ton to me.
Knowing that you've got a partner that truly believes in what they're doing and truly believes in what your vision is, and works with you from start to finish on all those little tiny things that add up to fantastic facilities has been it's been truly a pleasure, and I'm sure we're going to have more projects coming up soon, and they'll be our first and only call.
All right. Well, I think we that wraps things up. We do have an opportunity if there's any questions. Dave, I think you'll pull up our contact information. We're happy to answer any questions you might have here today, or if you want to reach out to us after this, there's some email information there as well.
So there are some questions in the chat. Not sure if you saw them yet. We have one that says, with your extensive experience in the commercial trucking industry, what are some lessons learned?
Well, that's a good question, and I can answer that in a broad sense, because there are so many details. But the biggest lesson I think that you can apply to any project is you can't communicate enough. You can't over communicate. So asking the right questions and having those conversations to understand. I mentioned, you're the broadly experienced. You do bring a lot of that to the table, but understanding exactly what people's individual needs are, how their business is nuanced and different from someone else's, I think is critical. So while we do bring a broad experience, I think that can help us move quickly to some, solutions, but understanding the detail, digging in, rolling up your sleeves, and really understanding all those little things that make your business unique is really the most valuable lesson. Dave, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good high level, and I agree with everything you said. I think from a process perspective, just there's the amount of volume that we've done with automotive and trucking over the years. And I would say we're experts in that type of arena, in asking these types of questions of what is the recommendation that you should be doing. Obviously, some owners have certain preferences that are not always the same from facility to facility, but the level of detail, like you were talking about, Brian, that we have in our drawings, for example, is really there's a lot in there. As an example, our stair details that come off of a cross dock facility I wish I had one to show everybody today, but they're beautiful. There's a tremendous amount of detail on how everything comes together. So it's very, very clear to everybody on what the deliverable is going to be and what the expectation is for what they will be building out in the field. So the amount of time that we've worked on these projects has allowed us to refine even our drawings and our details to a level that are very, very catered to this particular project type.
Yeah, and Dave, we have a catalog of those details that bring that 30 plus years of history along with them, and they've been refined over that time frame. Not to say that detail isn't the exact detail that you need, but there's a lot of history there with those, and it's a great starting point.
Okay, we have another question. What do you think makes your partnership unique?
I'll start a little bit.
Yeah, I think.
So you want to, you go for it. You do it.
Well, I was going to say just that, we think alike, and I say that in a broad sense between the companies. We're both in the partnership business. It's not about us; it's about you, the owner, and your project, and what we can do as a team to streamline this. So really, I know that we share the same core values, right? And I think that partnership, it's evidenced by the fact that Renier and Archall have been doing design build for 30 plus years. And that's built up as sort of a shorthand. We know we can communicate pretty quickly and easily between ourselves to, again, streamline the process.
Yeah, and I would say, there are two sides to the coin. One is you have to be able to perform, both of us do, and whatever our role is in the process. But culturally, both of our organizations are similar in a lot of ways, and we like each other, which that's a big important thing. Like you need to like each other. And Brian and I in particular, we've had a very long history of working together. As both on a professional level and a personal level. So I think what we have seen is that both of our organizations have been made better by the relationship that we have with each other in our working relationship. Iron sharpening iron, whatever you want to call it, but the things that help us get better, we're getting feedback from Renier, and then we're also giving Renier feedback on things that we may be seeing. And that constant dialogue back and forth has really honed our relationship and our process over the years.
Okay. And the next question, do any projects stick out to you as ones you're very proud of?
Well, it's sort of like asking you who your favorite child is. I mean, you're not, I don't know how you're supposed to answer that, but what I'll say is I'm more proud of the partnerships and the relationships that we've built through the projects than I am of any one project in particular. They all bring challenges, and we're problem solvers, and we like to dig in and figure these things out in the most efficient way. So, in a broad sense, they're all my favorite, especially the ones where we're high-fiving at the end of it, where we're having the ribbon cutting and everyone's smiling, and that's most of them. So, Dave, I don't know if you have any more. You're just going to name one project, aren't you? You have
no. Well, I think it in the lens of trucking in particular, we have done a very large amount of work with Dayton Freight over the years. So, and that is all the things we're talking about, is that we have been a trusted partner to them. And they kept coming back for more and more and more. So I think that's a good example of a specific project name in particular that has been successful for our organizations.
I just thought of something else too, and maybe it ties into that, but sometimes the projects where, and I'm thinking of the Hogan facility that we did in Obetz, where they bought an existing building that was, we'll just say there was a lot of deferred maintenance. I mean, this thing, it just was in rough shape, and it's so satisfying to see the transformation from a building or facility that's very, very worn out and tired into something that basically looks like it's brand new. And that's a really cool thing to be part of, that before and after. And it's maybe equally as satisfying as the brand new warehouse or the brand new facility that we're building from the ground up.
What strategies do you use to ensure collaboration between the design and construction teams throughout the project?
Well, I think it goes back to that schedule, that project development schedule. And, you know, we're having those weekly meetings. We talked a little bit about it. So really the secret sauce of design build is team building. So we're building that team of experts and bringing them into the room weekly, and we're having those weekly meetings to communicate with each other throughout the entire process. So the weekly meetings, I guess, is a great tool. Those milestone check-ins that Dave mentioned, the 30, 60, 90, is another really good collaborative tool. And that really can bring in the ownership into that process. And like Dave mentioned, however, I mean, some owners want to meet weekly, some want to. I've had some of our longest standing relationships. We've had people, you know, kind of show up at the beginning and show up when the project is complete. That's very unusual, but requires a high level of understanding and trust.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication along the way. It's the weekly meetings, and even when we get into construction, we're going out on site periodically to check in on things. And even when they're building the building, there's questions very frequently on things that come up. That's just the nature of construction. And we have these wonderful tools now where there is just a tremendous amount of volume of photos, for example, of what's being built. That's live, that anybody can have access to. Our construction design build team, the owners, whoever wants to have access to that stuff. But yeah, it's a very the relationship between architecture and contractor, as we're talking about it in this specific sense, is there's really not a separation between the two. I mean, obviously, architecture has a higher, we have a higher push. Most of our work is at the beginning, but then it's continuing to monitor and kind of answer questions as it's being built.
What do you see coming in the commercial design and construction industry in the next 10 years?
Um, 10 years is a pretty big, broad time frame. But, you know, I think just increased efficiency has been one of the things, you know, and it goes back to the lean construction practices. That has been around a little while. It's becoming a little bit more embraced. I think for companies our size, it's relatively unusual, but we're seeing that as a really great tool. So efficiency through our actions, efficiency through reducing waste, I think is going to continue to be a driving force, and then efficiency in how that facility operates. All right, how easy is it to maintain? What are your operating costs? So making sure that it's designed to operate in a way that is sustainable over the long haul. You know, we're seeing we do a lot. We're of metal pre-engineered metal buildings, and one of those companies that we are represent is Nucor, and Nucor has a big push. They have an option now for solar, so they have a power shingle. I think that was actually in the video, or the in the video and the image of the Volkswagen store. We've installed one of those. So I just think an increase or a push to continue that increase in efficiency and value, that's never going to go away.
Yeah, and I think on a broader sense, for our commercial in general, I'll say the dirty word, which is COVID. But so COVID pushed everybody, a lot of people, you know, to work from home. And so we're hearing more and more about people wanting to come back into the office. Now, when you're doing a trucking facility, some of that stuff, it could never be remote in general. But if you're going to talk about commercial in that sense, the spaces that people are coming back to, their office environments, are something that people are looking to elevate that experience, just moving forward. More of a hospitality type of things, make it a place that people want to go to. Not everybody's doing that fully right now, but that is a trend that we're starting to hear more and more about, is that if I'm going to have my people come back here and I want to attract good talent and I want them to have a good experience when they're, under our roof, let's make it a great experience for them, even while they're in the office, for example. So we have a very talented interior design team that really this is their wheelhouse of kind of diving into what these things would be. But I kind of see that as a trend over the next 10 years, just continuing to elevate really interiors specific and making sure that that space and that experience that people are having is a good one. And that's kind of a generic statement. I understand that, but there are elements that people are wanting that experience to be elevated higher than it has been before in the past. And I think that's going to continue to happen. There's flexibility in work areas right now with Zoom rooms or Teams rooms or whatever, and knowing what those spaces are and accounting for that, so that people can be in a collaborative work environment, but also have their own spaces to themselves. So I think we're going to continue to kind of hone that a little bit more. And that's going to be something that's going to continue to happen. And I think, the shipping stuff is really quite amazing. I even think right now of my Christmas stuff that I'm doing, and I think most people are doing this. It's like, it's so easy to buy stuff online. We all know this. So that whole online e-commerce environment is not going to change, in any capacity. I mean, I just reflected on this past week and I bought a bike for my daughter, and I went to a couple different stores and I didn't buy anything and I didn't find anything that I actually wanted. And I was frustrated. I was like, man, that took 2 hours of my day to go shop around. And, it's not, to Brian's point, the efficiency side of things. I think that people are going to continue to lean on that, and trucking and shipping is, I don't see that getting any smaller in the long term. I think it's just going to continue to grow.
Okay, and what role does the client typically play in decision making throughout the process?
The client is the end all be all. It's their project. We're here as advisors, trusted advisors, to give them all the knowledge that we've accumulated over the last 30 plus years in these various project types. But again, we need to know, we can offer solutions, but we need to know what their needs are. That really drives the project. They are the ultimate decision maker. It's their facility. It's not ours. We can, like I said, offer that history of insight, but yeah, it's their facility.
Yeah, and so what we do in the design process is, we've coined this thing as live design. So what we want to do in whatever capacity we can is make the design decisions with the owner in those design meetings as we go. We are not about the big reveal of Archall and Renier working together to come up with a solution, and then we're going to, reveal the curtain, so to speak, and show you your product. That's not the way that this works. We are very collaborative, even in the design process, and we want all the stakeholders there. Whoever is going to have input on the vision of whatever the project is, and we'll literally be working on it in the meeting. And that is hard to do sometimes because of whatever the software is that you're using, but we have developed specific tools so that we can do that quickly. This is not like a laborious thing where we're waiting for, walls to move or whatever. we want to make those design decisions as quickly as possible. And that can be both in plan, kind of shaping the plan, and we can do that very, very, very quickly. It's fun to watch people that haven't seen what I'm explaining. They get really excited. They start like literally go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you can like move that thing that way or whatever. And then once we get on the exterior, we can have a 3D model and be spinning the model around and pulling things out. And we strategically use certain software platforms that allow us to do that work quickly in these meetings with owners, and also with the entire design team, so that everybody has input into the product that we're having. Obviously, as an architect, we have the design, we think design all the time. So there's suggestions and kind of guiding, that happens along that way. But at the end of the day, like Brian said, it's not our project. It's not Renier's project. It's the owner's project.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brian and Dave.
Those are really good questions. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Don. Those are really great
No,
questions.
you're fine.
Feedback. Yeah, thank you.
Those were awesome questions. So if there aren't any more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap. If you do have more questions that you think of later, feel free to shoot them an email and they will definitely get back with you. And I just want to thank you, Brian and Dave. That will conclude our Level Up webinar. A recording of today's session will be emailed to you within 24 hours. And as always, we appreciate your support of the association and hope you have a great rest of your day.